I never thought the day would come when I would see my twin sister, my other half, my reflection in this world, appear at my door with her face disfigured by blows that had stripped all the light from her eyes. She, who had always been the brave one, the one who dared to love without fear, arrived trembling that Tuesday night, with a purple bruise covering her right cheek and a split lip that was still bleeding. Her boyfriend, that man everyone admired, that powerful man who ran shady businesses in the city, had done that to her. And when I discovered it, when I saw what he truly hid behind his expensive suit and sweet words, I decided it was time to switch places. I would take her life for a while, and I would teach him a lesson he would never forget. But before I continue with my story, I want to ask you a question. Where are you listening to me from right now? From your living room, from your kitchen while preparing dinner, or perhaps lying in your bed before sleep? And tell me, how old are you? Let me know in the comments. I would like to know who is on the other side, listening to these words that are so hard for me to say, this truth I have kept for so long. Now yes, let me take you to the beginning of everything. It was March 23rd when everything began to crumble. I remember the exact date because that day had dawned with a leaden gray sky threatening rain, and I was in my small third-floor apartment on Morelos Street, preparing coffee in that old coffee maker I inherited from Mom. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as I looked out the window at the wet streets of early morning. It was 6:15 in the morning. I know because the wall clock, the one shaped like a rooster that Dad gave us before he died, had just struck the hour with its metallic crow. My sister Lucia had been dating Rodrigo Santillan for 8 months. 8 months in which I had seen her transform from a cheerful woman full of life into someone who smiled only when he looked at her. Someone who had stopped calling me as much as before. Someone who, when we talked on the phone, seemed to be reading a script written by someone else. I am Elena Cristina Dominguez, 32 years old, elementary school teacher at Benito Juarez School, single, and the older twin sister by exactly 12 minutes. 12 minutes that Lucia never let me forget when we were children, because she always said those 12 minutes made me the bossy one, the protector, the one who worried too much. Lucia and I were identical. Same dark brown hair that reached the middle of our backs, same honey-colored eyes we inherited from Dad, same height of 5'4", same slender build. The only difference was a small birthmark I had behind my left ear, the size of a lentil, that only someone who knew us very well could notice. That morning of March 23rd, while the coffee was cooling in my blue ceramic mug, my cell phone started vibrating on the kitchen table. It was a message from Lucia. "Are you awake?" it said simply. No emojis, no typical beautiful sister she always greeted me with. Just those 2 words. Yes, making coffee. Everything okay? I responded immediately, feeling something in my stomach tighten. The 3 suspension dots appeared on the screen, indicating she was typing. It took almost 2 minutes for her to respond. "Can I come to your house?" My heart began to beat faster. Lucia never asked if she could come. She simply showed up, knocked on the door with our secret code, 3 quick knocks and 1 slow one, and entered as if it were her own house. "Of course, I'll put more coffee on," I typed quickly, my hands trembling slightly. Another long pause. "Then I'm downstairs." I dropped the phone on the table and ran to the door, not even bothering to put on slippers over my bare feet. The cold tiles of the hallway made me shiver as I rushed down the stairs, taking 2 at a time. When I reached the building entrance and pulled open the heavy glass door, I saw her. My sister was standing under the dim street light, hunched over, arms wrapped around herself, despite wearing that expensive cream-colored coat Rodrigo had bought her last month. The coat that cost more than my entire month's salary. But it was her face that made me gasp, made my hand fly to my mouth to stifle a cry that wanted to escape from deep in my chest. Her right eye was swollen almost shut, surrounded by a bruise so dark it looked black in the early morning light. Her lower lip was split open, crusted with dried blood, and there was a cut on her left eyebrow that someone had tried to close with a butterfly bandage. But worse than the physical marks was the look in her eyes. That empty, hollow look of someone whose soul had been beaten out of them. "Lucia," I whispered, and my voice broke on her name. She looked up at me, and in that moment, I saw my own face staring back at me, destroyed. It was like looking in a mirror that showed me a nightmare version of myself. She tried to smile, and I watched as the movement split her lip open again, a thin line of fresh blood appearing. "Hi sis," she said. And her voice was so small, so broken that I felt something crack inside my chest. I didn't say anything else. I just moved forward and wrapped my arms around her, carefully, afraid I might hurt her more. She collapsed against me, and I felt her whole body shaking with silent sobs. Her tears soaked through my cotton nightgown, warm and wet against my shoulder. "Come on, let's get you upstairs," I murmured into her hair, which smelled like expensive shampoo mixed with something else. Whiskey, Rodrigo's cologne, the scent of violence. We made our way slowly up the 3 flights of stairs. Lucia leaned heavily on me, and I could feel her wincing with each step. When we finally reached my apartment, I guided her to the worn sofa that Mom had reupholstered in blue floral fabric 5 years ago, before the cancer took her. The morning light was starting to filter through the thin curtains, casting everything in a gray, sad glow. I could see my sister's injuries more clearly now, and each new detail made rage burn hotter in my stomach. There were finger-shaped bruises on her neck, her wrists were red and raw, as if she had been held down. The knuckles on her right hand were scraped and bloody. She fought back, I thought, feeling a fierce pride mixed with my horror. My Lucia fought back. I went to the bathroom and grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink, the white metal box with the red cross that Dad had insisted we always keep stocked. My hands were shaking as I returned to the living room with the kit, a bowl of warm water and clean towels. Lucia hadn't moved. She sat exactly as I had left her, staring at nothing, her hands folded in her lap like a child waiting to be scolded. "Let me clean you up," I said softly, kneeling in front of her. She nodded, barely a movement of her head. I dipped the towel in the warm water and began to gently clean the dried blood from her lip. She flinched but didn't pull away. Up close I could see more. A small cut on her chin, bruising along her jawline, that looked like it would get worse before it got better. Her makeup was smeared, black mascara tracks running down her cheeks from crying. "When?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Last night," she answered, and her voice was hoarse, as if she had been screaming. "Around 11. I pressed the towel against her split lip, applying gentle pressure to stop the bleeding that had started again. "What happened?" She closed her eyes, and fresh tears leaked out from under her lashes. "I told him I wanted to go back to work. I told him I missed teaching, that I wanted to see my students again." My jaw clenched. Lucia had been a kindergarten teacher, the best one I knew. She loved those children like they were her own. Came home every day with stories about their funny sayings and small triumphs. But 3 months ago, Rodrigo had convinced her to quit. He said his woman didn't need to work, that people would think he couldn't provide for her. He said he wanted her at home, waiting for him. I should have fought harder against that decision. I should have grabbed my sister and shaken her and told her to run. But I hadn't. I had watched silently as she slipped away from me, piece by piece. "And he hit you for that?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "He said I was ungrateful." Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she was reciting facts about the weather. "He said he gave me everything. A beautiful apartment, clothes, jewelry, a car. He said I was trying to embarrass him, that people would talk, that they would say he couldn't keep his woman satisfied." I continued cleaning her wounds, each gentle touch of the towel, feeling inadequate against the enormity of what had been done to her. "Go on," I said quietly. I told him it wasn't about money, that I just missed working with children. I told him I felt lonely all day in that big apartment with nothing to do but wait for him. She paused, swallowing hard. That's when he grabbed me by the throat and slammed me against the wall. He said if I was lonely, maybe I should try harder to be the kind of woman who could keep a man interested. The towel in my hand was turning pink with her blood. I rinsed it in the bowl, watching the water cloud, and felt my own tears starting to fall. "He hit me, Elena, over and over, and the worst part." Her voice broke completely. "The worst part is that I kept apologizing. I kept saying I was sorry, that I wouldn't bring it up again, that I would be better. I begged him to stop, and I hated myself for begging, but I couldn't help it." I set down the towel and took both of her hands in mine, careful of her scraped knuckles. "Look at me, Lucia." She opened her eyes, those honey-colored eyes we shared, now red and swollen from crying. "This is not your fault," I said, squeezing her hands. Do you hear me? None of this is your fault. But if I hadn't said anything, if I had just kept quiet. No, my voice came out sharper than I intended. No, you have every right to want to work, to want a life beyond waiting in an apartment for a man who treats you like property. He is the monster here, not you. She started crying again, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I moved onto the sofa beside her and held her while she cried, rocking her slightly the way Mom used to rock us when we were little and had nightmares. Outside, the city was waking up. I could hear the distant sounds of traffic, the rumble of buses, people starting their Tuesday morning routines, normal people living normal lives, unaware that in this small apartment, my world was shattering. When Lucia's sobs finally quieted to hiccups and shaky breaths, I asked the question I had been afraid to ask. Where does he think you are right now? She pulled back slightly, wiping at her face with the sleeve of her expensive coat. I don't know. He was passed out drunk when I left. He drank a whole bottle of whiskey after he finished with me. I waited until he was snoring, then I grabbed my purse and ran. Does he know you came here? She shook her head. I turned off my phone. I threw it in a trash can 2 blocks from his building. I didn't want him to be able to track me. Smart girl, I thought. Even in her pain, even in her terror, she had been smart enough to think about being tracked. You can't go back, I said firmly. I know. Her voice was small again. I'm serious, Lucia. You cannot go back to that man. I know, she repeated. But there was something in her tone that made me uneasy. A hesitation, a doubt. I pulled back to look at her directly. Lucia Cristina Dominguez, promise me right now that you will not go back to him. She looked away, staring at the wall where we had hung a photo of us with Mom and Dad at the beach when we were 7 years old. We were wearing matching yellow swimsuits, building sandcastles, laughing at something Dad had said. That day felt like it had happened in another lifetime, to 2 different girls who didn't yet know how cruel the world could be. He'll look for me, she whispered. You don't understand. He has people everywhere. He has money, power. If he wants to find me, he will find me. Then we'll go to the police. She laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. The police? Elena, half the police force is on his payroll. You think they'll help me? You think anyone will believe me over him? Rodrigo Santillan, the successful businessman, the man who donates to charities and shows up smiling in the society pages. They'll say I'm lying. They'll say I'm trying to extort him. Or worse, they'll tell him where I am. I knew she was right. I had heard the stories about Rodrigo, whispered conversations at the market, careful words exchanged between neighbors. Everyone knew what he really was. Everyone knew his business was just a front for drugs, gambling, protection rackets. But no one said anything, because people who spoke out against Rodrigo Santillan had a way of disappearing or suffering unfortunate accidents. Then we'll leave, I said, grasping at solutions. We'll go to another city, another state. We'll change our names, start over. And what about you? Your job? Your life? You would give all that up for me. In a heartbeat, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. She started crying again, but softer this time. I'm so sorry, Elena. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. You tried to warn me about him at the beginning, and I was so stupid, so blinded by his attention and his money and the way he made me feel special. You said something was off about him, and I told you that you were jealous, that you couldn't stand to see me happy. I said such horrible things to you. Shh, it's okay. You're here now, that's what matters. We sat together on that old sofa, as the morning light grew stronger, casting long shadows across the room. I made her tea with honey for her throat, and gave her 2 painkillers for the pain that she said was radiating through her whole body. She changed out of her blood-stained clothes into some of mine, soft cotton pajamas with little flowers on them. The expensive clothes went into a plastic bag, evidence I wasn't sure what to do with yet. By 8 o'clock, Lucia had finally fallen asleep on my bed, exhausted from crying in pain and fear. I covered her with the heavy quilt Grandma had made, the one with squares of fabric from all our old clothes stitched together in a pattern of our childhood. I stood in the doorway watching her sleep, watching the rise and fall of her chest, the way she curled into herself like she was trying to become as small as possible. Even in sleep she looked afraid. That's when I made my decision. I walked back to the living room, and picked up the plastic bag with Lucia's clothes. I pulled out her coat and searched the pockets until I found what I was looking for. Her apartment key. The key to Rodrigo's penthouse on the 15th floor of that luxury building on Reforma Avenue. I held the cold metal in my palm and thought about what I was going to do. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was possibly the stupidest idea I had ever had. But as I looked at that key, I knew with absolute certainty that I was going to do it anyway. If Lucia couldn't escape Rodrigo, then I would become Lucia. I would go back to that apartment, back to that monster, and I would make him pay for every bruise, every tear, every moment of fear he had inflicted on my sister. We were identical. We moved the same way, talked the same way, even had the same small mannerisms that we had picked up from each other over 32 years of being inseparable. The only person who could tell us apart easily was Mom, and she was gone. Even Dad, before he died, sometimes mixed us up if we dressed alike. But more importantly, I knew that men like Rodrigo didn't really see women. They saw possessions. They saw objects that existed only in relation to themselves. He didn't know Lucia, not really. He knew his version of her, the quiet, obedient woman he was trying to mold her into. If I played that role, if I became the scared, apologetic girlfriend who just wanted to make him happy, he would never know the difference. At least, that's what I told myself as I closed my fist around the key. I spent the rest of that Tuesday planning. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and my principal, Mrs. Herrera, sounded concerned. "Are you feeling all right, Elena? You never miss a day." "Just a stomach bug," I lied, my voice steady. "I should be fine by tomorrow." Then I sat at my small kitchen table with a notebook and pen and started writing down everything I knew about Lucia's life with Rodrigo. His schedule, his habits, his likes and dislikes. How Lucia had described their daily routine. What time he came home, what he liked for dinner, how she was supposed to greet him at the door. The more I wrote, the more my stomach turned. My sister's life read like an instruction manual for being the perfect doll. She was supposed to wake up before him to make his coffee. She was supposed to wear the clothes he picked out. She was supposed to smile when he wanted her to smile, be quiet when he wanted silence, be available whenever he wanted her. She had become less than a person, reduced to a collection of behaviors designed to please a man who would never be pleased. Around noon, Lucia woke up, crying out from a nightmare. I ran to her, and she grabbed onto me with trembling hands. "He was here," she gasped. "In my dream he found me. And he—" "You're safe," I interrupted, holding her tight. "You're in my apartment, and you're safe." But even as I said the words, I wondered how true they were. How long before Rodrigo came looking for her? How long before he connected the dots and showed up at my door? I helped Lucia back to the living room, and made her eat some soup, even though she said she wasn't hungry. I watched as she mechanically brought the spoon to her swollen lips, wincing with each swallow. "I need to tell you something," I said. When she had finished half the bowl, she looked up at me, fear flickering in her eyes. "What?" "I'm going to go back there." "What? No. Elena, you can't." "Listen to me," I said, taking her hands again. "You said it yourself. He will look for you. He will find you. And when he does, it will be worse. You know it will be worse. So what are you saying? That I should just go back and take it? That I should just accept that this is my life now?" "No, I'm saying that I will go back. As you." She stared at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe I had. "What are you talking about?" "We switch. I become you, and you become me. I'll go to his apartment, and I'll be the perfect girlfriend for a while. Long enough to figure out how to destroy him from the inside. Long enough to find evidence of his crimes, his violence, something we can use to put him away for good, or at least ruin him publicly so thoroughly that he can't touch either of us." "Elena, that's insane. He'll know. He'll figure it out, and he'll kill you." "He won't know. We're identical. I've spent 32 years being your twin. I know how you move, how you talk, what you like and don't like. I can do this. But he's my boyfriend. There are things between us, intimate things. You can't just pretend to be me in every way." I felt my face heat up, but I kept my voice steady. "I'll figure it out. I'll say I'm sore from last night, that I need time to heal. I'll say the doctor told me to rest. I'll make excuses. It won't be forever, Just long enough. Lucia was shaking her head frantically. No, no, I can't let you do this. What if something goes wrong? What if he hurts you the way he hurt me? Then at least you'll be safe, I said simply. But, Lucia. I squeezed her hands hard enough to make her focus on me. He has already taken so much from you. Your job, your confidence, your sense of safety. I will not let him take anything else. And I will not let him get away with what he did to you. Someone has to make him pay, and if the police won't do it, if the law won't do it, then I will. She was crying again, tears streaming down her bruised face. You can't, you're all I have left. Mom and Dad are gone. You're the only family I have. I can't lose you. You won't lose me. I promise you. I will be careful. I will be smart. But I need you to trust me. We sat there for a long moment, hands clasped, looking at each other. Two identical faces, one destroyed and one determined. Finally Lucia spoke, her voice barely audible. What do you need me to do? Relief flooded through me, mixed with terror at what I was committing to. Tell me everything. Every single detail about your life with him. His routines, his moods, how he likes things. Everything you can remember. And so she did. For the next 6 hours, Lucia told me about her life with Rodrigo Santillan. She told me about how he was charming in public, the perfect gentleman, opening doors and pulling out chairs and speaking in a cultured, educated way. But at home behind closed doors, he was different. His voice would change, becoming cold and controlled. He would criticize everything: how she dressed, how she cooked, how she cleaned, how she breathed. He has rules, she said, her voice dull. So many rules. The apartment has to be spotless at all times. The bed has to be made with hospital corners. His clothes have to be laid out in a specific order. Dinner has to be on the table at exactly 7:30. If I'm even 5 minutes late, he gets angry. What does he do when he's angry? I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know. At first he would just yell, tell me I was stupid, useless, that I should be grateful he put up with me. Then he started grabbing me, shaking me, leaving bruises where people couldn't see them. On my arms, my back, my stomach. She pulled up her shirt, and I saw the fading yellow-green marks of old bruises. He was always careful not to mark my face. Last night was the first time he didn't care about that. Why last night? I asked. What was different? She was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands. Because last night I finally stood up to him. I didn't just take it. When he grabbed me, I pushed back. I told him I hated him, that he was a coward who could only feel powerful by hurting someone weaker than him. That's when he really lost it. That's when he decided to teach me a lesson I wouldn't forget. I felt sick. Sick with rage. Sick with guilt that I hadn't seen how bad it was. Sick with fear for what I was about to do. Tell me about the apartment, I said, trying to focus on practical details. The layout, where things are. His office. Lucia described it all. The penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The master bedroom with its massive bed and walk-in closets. The kitchen with its marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. His office, which she was forbidden to enter. The safe in the office that she knew existed but had never seen opened. That's where he keeps things, she said. Documents. Money? I don't know what else. But he guards that office like it's Fort Knox. There's a lock on the door with a code that he changes regularly. Do you know what the current code is? She shook her head. He never told me. But I've watched him punch it in before, when he didn't realize I could see. It's 7 digits. The first 3 numbers are 263. I couldn't see the rest. 263. I committed it to memory, knowing it might be important. As the afternoon wore on, Lucia told me about Rodrigo's associates. There was Fernando, his right-hand man, who was always hovering nearby. There was Javier, who handled the money. There was Carlos, who dealt with what Lucia called problems. I didn't ask what that meant. They come to the apartment sometimes, she said. Late at night. They go into the office and close the door, and I can hear them talking in low voices. Rodrigo always tells me to stay in the bedroom when they're there, to not come out no matter what. Do they know what he does to you? She laughed bitterly. They probably do it to their own women. Men like that, they see it as normal. They see us as things to be controlled. By the time evening came, I felt like I had absorbed a lifetime of information. But there was still one crucial thing I needed to do. I needed to become Lucia, not just in knowledge, but in appearance and manner. We stood in front of my full-length mirror, side by side, in our simple clothes, with our hair down and no makeup. We looked like perfect reflections of each other. But that wasn't how Lucia looked anymore in her life with Rodrigo. "Show me," I said. "Show me how you do your makeup for him. How you style your hair, how you dress." Over the next hour, Lucia transformed me. She applied makeup the way Rodrigo liked it, heavier than I would normally wear, with dark eyeliner and red lipstick. She styled my hair in loose waves, the way he preferred it. She had me practice walking in the high heels she wore around the apartment, the ones that made her legs look longer but hurt her feet after an hour. "You need to be softer," she said, watching me move. "More careful, like you're always afraid of taking up too much space. Make yourself smaller." It went against everything in my nature, but I tried. I rounded my shoulders slightly, kept my eyes down, moved with hesitation instead of my normal confident stride. "That's better," Lucia said quietly. "Now practice speaking, say something." "What do you want me to say?" "Say what you would say when he comes home." I thought about it, then spoke in a voice softer than my own. "Welcome home, my love. How was your day? Dinner is almost ready." Lucia's face crumpled. "Perfect. You sound exactly like me, like the me I became for him." We both stood there looking at ourselves in the mirror. Two women with the same face preparing for a dangerous game of deception. "When will you go?" Lucia asked. "Tomorrow morning. By now he's probably sober and looking for you. I need to show up before he decides to come here." "What will you tell him?" "The truth, in a way, that I was scared, that I ran but that I realized I had nowhere else to go. That I'm sorry, that it won't happen again, that I love him and I want to make things right." The words tasted like poison in my mouth. He'll expect." Lucia couldn't finish the sentence. "I know, I'll handle it." That night we slept in my bed together like we used to when we were children, and one of us had a nightmare. Lucia curled up against me and I held her, listening to her breathing slowly even out as exhaustion finally pulled her under. But I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, watching shadows move across it, thinking about what I was about to do, thinking about the moment I would stand in front of Rodrigo Santillan and look into the eyes of the man who had beaten my sister, wondering if I could really pull this off, or if I was just signing my own death warrant. Somewhere in the city, in his luxury penthouse, Rodrigo was probably pacing, wondering where his girlfriend had gone, planning what he would do when he found her. He had no idea that when his door opened tomorrow it wouldn't be the same woman who had run away. The clock on the wall ticked forward, bringing me closer to a point of no return. When dawn finally broke on Wednesday, March 24th, I got up carefully so as not to wake Lucia. I showered and dressed in clothes from the bag Lucia had brought, expensive jeans that fit perfectly because we were the same size, a soft cashmere sweater in cream, the designer boots Rodrigo had bought her. I did my makeup the way she had shown me, styled my hair in those loose waves. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Elena, the elementary school teacher, anymore. I saw Lucia, Rodrigo's girlfriend, the woman who had learned to make herself small. Lucia woke up as I was gathering my things, her one good eye flying open in panic before she remembered where she was. "You're really going?" she said. It wasn't a question. "I'm really going." She got out of bed slowly, her body stiff with pain, and came to stand in front of me. For a long moment we just looked at each other, twins separated by 12 minutes and a lifetime of choices. "If you don't hear from me by tomorrow night," I said, "if I don't call or text, go to the police, tell them everything. Show them your injuries. Don't worry about me, just save yourself." "Elena, promise me." "I promise," she whispered. I hugged her one last time, breathing in the smell of my shampoo in her hair, feeling her heart beating against mine. "I love you, little sister." "I love you too. Please be careful. Please come back to me." "I will." Then I picked up Lucia's expensive purse, put the apartment key in my pocket, and walked out the door before I could lose my courage. The taxi ride to Rodrigo's building took 25 minutes through morning traffic. I sat in the back seat, watching the city pass by, trying to steady my breathing. The driver, an older man with gray hair, kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "You okay, miss?" he finally asked. "You look nervous." I forced a smile, the kind of smile Lucia would give. Small, apologetic. "I'm fine, just going to see someone I haven't seen in a while." "Boyfriend?" he asked with a knowing grin. "Something like that." He nodded, satisfied with the answer, and turned his attention back to the road. When we pulled up in front of the building on Reforma Avenue, my hands were shaking. The building was exactly as Lucia had described, modern, sleek, with a doorman in a crisp uniform standing at the entrance. This was the kind of place where people who worked regular jobs like me could never afford to live. I paid the driver with cash from Lucia's wallet, and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The morning sun was bright, the sky a cheerful blue that mocked the darkness of what I was about to do. The doorman, whose name tag read Miguel, smiled when he saw me. "Good morning, Miss Dominguez. Mr. Santillan has been worried about you." I kept my head down, my voice soft. "I know, I'm sorry. He asked us to call him as soon as we saw you." "Should I?" "No," I said quickly. "I'll go up myself. I want to surprise him." Miguel looked uncertain but nodded. "Of course, miss." The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt like it lasted an eternity, and no time at all. My reflection in the mirrored walls showed a woman who looked calm on the surface, but I could see my pulse hammering in my throat, could see the way my fingers trembled slightly as I clutched Lucia's purse. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the 15th floor. The doors slid open onto a hallway with only two doors, one for Rodrigo's penthouse, and one for his neighbor, a wealthy widow Lucia had mentioned who was rarely home. I stood in that hallway for a full minute just breathing. This was it, the moment I crossed from Elena into Lucia, from safety into danger. I pulled out the key with a hand that didn't feel like my own, and slid it into the lock. The door opened onto a space that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the apartment with light, showing a panoramic view of the city spread out below. The furniture was all modern and expensive, leather and glass and chrome. Everything was immaculate, not a thing out of place, like a showroom instead of somewhere people actually lived. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, hearing the lock click with a finality that made my stomach drop. "Lucia?" His voice came from somewhere deeper in the apartment. Rodrigo's voice, smooth and cultured, the voice of a man who was used to being obeyed. I swallowed hard and forced myself to walk toward the sound. My heels clicked on the marble floor of the entryway, then muffled as I reached the plush carpet of the living room. He was standing by the windows, silhouetted against the bright morning light. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing charcoal gray slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his posture that of a man who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. He turned when he heard me, and I saw his face for the first time since Lucia had described him to me in such detail. Handsome in a sharp, dangerous way. High cheekbones, strong jaw, dark eyes that right now were assessing me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "So you decided to come back," he said, his voice cold. I made myself speak in Lucia's soft, apologetic tone. "I'm sorry, I was scared. I didn't know what else to do." "So you ran away? You turned off your phone and disappeared for an entire day, leaving me to worry about where you were." He walked toward me slowly, deliberately, and I had to fight every instinct that screamed at me to run. "Do you have any idea what I went through, wondering if you were dead in a ditch somewhere?" He was close now, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Expensive masculine with an undertone of the whiskey Lucia had mentioned. Close enough that I could see the cold anger in his eyes. "I'm sorry," I repeated, keeping my eyes down the way Lucia had taught me. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have left. Look at me." I lifted my eyes slowly to meet his, and for a terrifying moment I thought he could see through me. Could see that I wasn't really Lucia, but then his expression changed slightly, some of the hardness giving way to something else. Satisfaction maybe, at seeing me cowed and apologetic. "Where did you go?" he asked. "I just walked," I lied. I was upset and confused, and I walked until I couldn't walk anymore. Then I sat in a park until this morning. I knew I needed to come back. I knew I needed to apologize. He studied my face, and I forced myself not to flinch as his eyes moved over the bruises he had left. "You made me very angry, Lucia. You know I don't like being angry." I know, I'm sorry. When I woke up and you were gone, I thought you had left me. I thought you were going to do something stupid, like go to the police or run to your sister. At the mention of Elena, my heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice steady. I didn't go to Elena. I couldn't face her looking like this. I was too ashamed. Something flickered in his eyes. Ashamed of what? Of the bruises or of what you did to deserve them? The urge to spit in his face, to tell him exactly what kind of monster he was, nearly overwhelmed me. But I thought of Lucia, thought of why I was here, and I pushed it down. Both, I whispered. He reached out and touched my cheek, right where the worst bruise was, pressing just hard enough to make it hurt. I gasped but didn't pull away. I lost control last night, he said, but there was no real apology in his voice. You pushed me too far talking about leaving, about going back to work, making it sound like what I give you isn't enough. Like I'm not enough. You are enough, I forced myself to say. More than enough. I was being selfish and ungrateful. It won't happen again. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. No, it won't, because I'm going to make sure you remember what happens when you displease me. Before I could react, he grabbed my wrist, the one that was already bruised, and squeezed hard. Pain shot up my arm, white hot and blinding, but I bit down on my lip to keep from crying out. You belong to me, he said softly, intimately, like he was sharing a secret. Your body belongs to me. Your time belongs to me. Your thoughts belong to me. Do you understand? Yes, I gasped. Yes, what? Yes, Rodrigo. That's my good girl. He released my wrist and stroked my hair, the gesture almost tender except for the threat underlying it. Now go clean yourself up. You look terrible. Then make me breakfast. I have a meeting at noon that I need to prepare for. I nodded and turned toward what I knew was the master bedroom, fighting to keep my steps steady when all I wanted to do was run. The bedroom was as opulent as the rest of the apartment. A king-sized bed with expensive sheets, a sitting area with a chaise lounge, and through an open door, a bathroom that was bigger than my entire bedroom at home. I locked myself in the bathroom and turned on the water in the sink, so he wouldn't hear me crying. Looking in the mirror, I saw Lucia's bruised face looking back at me, and for a moment the reality of what I had gotten myself into crashed over me like a wave. This man was a monster. A calculating, cruel monster who took pleasure in controlling and hurting someone who loved him. And I had just walked voluntarily into his trap. But then I thought about my sister, about the fear in her eyes, about the way she had apologized for being beaten. And I remembered why I was here. I was going to destroy him. I washed my face carefully, trying not to hurt the bruises more than necessary. Then I went back out into the bedroom and found the walk-in closet Lucia had described. It was full of clothes. All expensive, all the kind of thing Rodrigo would want her to wear. I changed into a simple dress, navy blue and modest, the kind of thing appropriate for making breakfast for a man who saw me as property. In the kitchen I found everything exactly where Lucia had said it would be. The coffee maker, the expensive beans Rodrigo preferred, the pan for eggs, the plate for toast. I moved through the motions mechanically, my mind already working on the real problem. How was I going to get into his office? Rodrigo emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later, dressed now in a full suit, looking every inch the successful businessman. He sat at the dining table and watched as I brought him his breakfast. Eggs cooked exactly 4 minutes, toast with butter but no jam, coffee with 2 sugars. Sit, he commanded when I started to turn away. I sat across from him, my hands folded in my lap, watching as he ate. He didn't speak to me, didn't acknowledge me, except to occasionally look up and make sure I was still there, still obedient. When he finished, he stood and came around the table. I tensed, but he just leaned down and kissed the top of my head. I'll be back around 5, he said. I want dinner ready at 7:30. The apartment better be spotless, and Lucia. He tilted my chin up to look at him. If you ever run away from me again, I will find you. And when I do, what happened last night will seem like nothing. Do you understand? I understand. Good, he smiled, squeezed my chin just hard enough to hurt, and then he was gone. I sat at that dining table for a full 5 minutes after the door closed, just breathing, just trying to calm the terror and rage warring inside me. Then I got up and went to his office door. It was locked, as Lucia had said it would be. There was a keypad next to the door waiting for the 7-digit code. I knew the first 3 numbers, 2, 6, 3. But the rest could be anything. I spent the next hour trying to figure it out. I tried obvious combinations. His birthday, Lucia's birthday, addresses. Nothing worked. After 3 failed attempts, the keypad beeped angrily and flashed red, and I worried it might have some kind of alert system. I would have to be smarter about this. More patient. Instead, I spent the day learning the apartment, understanding its rhythms and secrets. I cleaned meticulously, the way Lucia had described Rodrigo liked it. I found where everything was kept, learned the patterns of his life as much as I could from the evidence left behind in his space. In the bedroom closet behind a row of expensive shoes, I found a box of photographs, pictures of Lucia smiling, from early in their relationship when she had still been happy. I saw how her smile had gotten smaller and smaller in each successive photo, how her eyes had become more guarded. There were no recent photos, as if Rodrigo had stopped taking them once he had successfully broken her spirit. In the back of a drawer in the bathroom, I found prescription bottles in Lucia's name, anti-anxiety medication, sleeping pills, both prescribed by a doctor I didn't recognize, both with instructions to take as needed. More evidence of what this life had done to her. By the time 5 o'clock approached, I had dinner prepared. Steak cooked medium rare, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes. Exactly what Lucia said was his favorite meal. The table was set perfectly. The apartment was immaculate, and I was back in that modest dress waiting. Rodrigo came home at 5:15. The door opened and I heard his keys hit the bowl in the entryway. Heard his footsteps approaching. "Something smells good," he said, and his mood seemed better than this morning. "You've been busy." "I wanted to make your favorite," I said softly. "To apologize properly." He smiled, and for a moment I could see why Lucia had fallen for him. When he wanted to be, he could be charming, charismatic. "Come here." I walked over to him and he pulled me into his arms, holding me against his chest. I could feel his heart beating, steady and strong, untroubled by any conscience or guilt. "That's my girl," he murmured into my hair. "My good, obedient girl. You see how much better things are when you don't fight me." I nodded against his chest, my hands fisted at my sides where he couldn't see them. "I have something for you," he said, pulling back. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Open it." I took the box with trembling hands and opened it. Inside was a necklace. A delicate gold chain with a pendant that spelled out his name in diamonds. Rodrigo. "So everyone knows who you belong to," he said, taking it from the box and fastening it around my neck. The gold was cold against my skin, the pendant heavy. A collar, I thought. He's putting a collar on me. "It's beautiful," I forced myself to say. "Thank you. Now let's eat. I'm starving." Dinner was a surreal experience. Rodrigo talked about his day, about a business deal that had gone well, about plans he was making. He expected me to listen attentively, to nod at the right times, to laugh when he made a joke. He didn't ask about my day, didn't ask how I was feeling, didn't ask anything that would require him to see me as a person instead of an accessory. After dinner, he told me to join him on the couch. He turned on the television to a soccer match and pulled me against his side, one arm around my shoulders, possessive and proprietary. This is what it was like, I realized. This was Lucia's life, performing constant obedience, molding herself to his desires, existing only in relation to him. The violence was terrible, but this casual, everyday dehumanization might have been even worse. "Rodrigo," I said during a commercial break, keeping my voice casual. "I was thinking, since I'm not working anymore, maybe I could help you with your business. I could learn about what you do, maybe assist with paperwork, or, no." His voice was sharp, immediate. "You don't need to worry about business, that's my domain." I just thought. I said no, Lucia. He squeezed my shoulder hard enough to make me gasp. "Your job is to take care of this home and me. That's all you need to think about, understand?" "Yes, I'm sorry." He relaxed slightly, turning his attention back to the game. "Good, I don't want to have this conversation again." So much for that approach. I would have to find another way into his office. another way to discover what he was hiding. As the evening wore on, I felt a new kind of dread building. Eventually Rodrigo would expect to go to bed. Eventually he would expect intimacy. The thought made my stomach turn, but I had prepared for this possibility. Around 11, he stood and stretched. "I'm exhausted, let's go to bed." My heart started hammering, but I nodded and followed him to the bedroom. In the bathroom, I took my time changing into the nightgown. Lucia had told me Rodrigo liked silk, expensive, revealing. When I came out he was already in bed waiting for me. "Come here," he said, and his voice had taken on a different quality. "Hungry?" I walked over slowly, every cell in my body screaming at me to run. But I thought of Lucia, beaten and terrified, and I made myself slide into bed beside him. He pulled me against him immediately, his hands starting to roam over my body. I forced myself not to tense up, not to show my revulsion. "Rodrigo," I whispered. I'm still hurting from the other night. The doctor said I should rest for a few days." His hands stilled. "You went to a doctor?" Panic spiked through me. I hadn't meant to say that. Lucia wouldn't have gone to a doctor, wouldn't have risked someone seeing her injuries and asking questions. "No, I mean, I called a nurse hotline." I improvised quickly, just to ask about how to care for bruises. "They said I should rest." He was quiet for a moment, and I held my breath waiting to see if he believed me. "Fine," he finally said, but he sounded annoyed. "But only a few days, Lucia, I have needs." "I know. I'm sorry." He rolled over, turning his back to me. "Go to sleep." I lay there in the dark beside him, listening to his breathing even out as he fell asleep. And I felt like I had survived something. The first day was over. I had convinced him I was Lucia. I was inside his world now. But the hardest part was still ahead. Over the next 3 days, I fell into the routine of Lucia's life. I woke before Rodrigo to make his coffee. I cleaned the apartment until it sparkled. I cooked his meals exactly the way he liked them. I wore the clothes he preferred, styled my hair the way he wanted, made myself small and quiet and obedient. And every moment I was watching, learning, looking for weaknesses. I discovered that Rodrigo had patterns. He left for work at 8:30 every morning. He came home between 5 and 6. On Tuesday and Thursday evenings, men came to the apartment for meetings in his office. They arrived around 9 and left after midnight. Lucia was supposed to stay in the bedroom during these meetings, not even coming out to get water. I also discovered that despite his threats and his violence, Rodrigo wasn't actually that observant. He saw what he expected to see, a girlfriend who had learned her place. He never looked closely enough to notice the small ways I was different from Lucia. The way I folded the towels slightly differently. The way I hummed while cooking, something Lucia had stopped doing months ago. The way I sometimes forgot to flinch when he moved suddenly. On Thursday night, I got my chance. 3 men arrived for the meeting: Fernando, Javier, and Carlos, the associates Lucia had told me about. I stayed in the bedroom as instructed, door closed, heart pounding. But I had prepared for this. Earlier that day, while cleaning, I had discovered something important. The bedroom shared a wall with Rodrigo's office. And in the walk-in closet, if I pressed my ear against the wall in the back corner behind the hanging clothes, I could hear voices from the office. They were muffled, but audible. So while Rodrigo met with his men, I sat in the darkness of the closet, hidden behind expensive suits and dresses, and I listened. "The shipment arrives on Tuesday," Fernando's voice said. "Same dock, same time, 200 kilos. "And the distribution?" That was Rodrigo. "Already arranged. Carlos has the routes set up. We're expanding into the north neighborhoods, like you wanted." They were talking about drugs. Massive quantities of drugs, being moved through the city. "What about the police?" Javier asked. "Taken care of," Rodrigo replied. "Captain Morales is on the payroll. He's making sure his officers look the other way. And if anyone gets too curious, well, that's what we have Carlos for." Laughter. They were laughing about having police on their payroll, about threatening or killing anyone who got in their way. "There's one more thing," Fernando said, and his voice became more serious. "That journalist, the one who's been asking questions about our operations, he's becoming a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The persistent kind. He's been talking to people, digging into our legitimate businesses, trying to connect them to the drug trade. If he publishes what he knows, then make sure he doesn't publish." Rodrigo interrupted. "Talk to him. Explain the situation. Offer him money to look the other way. And if he won't take money..." A pause. "I'll handle it," Carlos said quietly. More talk about money. About payoffs. About violence delivered as casually as discussing the weather. I sat in that closet, my phone hidden in my hand, recording every word. This was it. This was the evidence I needed. Proof of drug trafficking, police corruption, threats of violence. Enough to bring Rodrigo down. But I couldn't act yet. I needed more. I needed to get into that office. Into that safe, find the documents and money Lucia had mentioned. I needed enough evidence that he couldn't escape, couldn't use his money and connections to wriggle free. The meeting ended after midnight. I heard the men leave. Heard Rodrigo lock up. Heard him come toward the bedroom. I quickly put my phone under the mattress and climbed into bed pretending to be asleep. He got into bed beside me, and I felt him watching me in the darkness. "Lucia," he said softly. I didn't move, keeping my breathing steady like I was sleeping. "I know you're awake." Slowly I opened my eyes. "Sorry. I must have dozed off." He reached out and touched my face, his fingers tracing the bruises that were starting to yellow and heal. "You've been very good these past few days. Very obedient. I'm pleased with you." "Thank you," I whispered. "Your bruises are healing. Maybe tomorrow night you'll feel well enough to reconnect." Dread washed through me, but I kept my voice steady. "Maybe." He smiled and kissed my forehead. A gesture that might have seemed sweet if I didn't know what his hands were capable of. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is Friday. I'm taking you out to dinner. I want to show you off. Let everyone see my beautiful girlfriend." After he fell asleep, I lay awake for hours. My mind racing. He was going to take me out in public. That meant people would see me. People who might know Lucia. People who might notice I wasn't really her. But it also meant the apartment would be empty for hours. Hours I could use to search his office properly. On Friday morning, I woke before Rodrigo as usual, and made his coffee. While he was in the shower, I checked my phone and saw several worried messages from my real phone, the one I had hidden at my apartment, from the school wondering where I was. Mrs. Herrera had called twice. My students probably thought I had abandoned them. Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. I couldn't think about that now. I had to focus on the mission. Rodrigo emerged from the bedroom dressed in another expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled, looking like the successful businessman he pretended to be. "The reservation is for 8 o'clock, he said as I handed him his coffee. "Wear the red dress. The one I bought you last month." "Okay," I said softly. He left for work and I spent the day in a state of nervous energy. Tonight I would have to be Lucia in public, in front of people who knew her, who might see through my disguise, but if I could pull it off, if I could get him to trust me enough, maybe he would eventually make a mistake that would give me access to his office. At 6 o'clock I started getting ready. I found the red dress he meant form-fitting, expensive, the kind of thing designed to make men look and women envy. I did my makeup carefully, my hair in those loose waves, put on the diamond earrings he had given Lucia for her birthday. When Rodrigo came home at 7, he looked me up and down with satisfaction. "Perfect. You look beautiful." "Thank you. Don't forget your necklace. The one with my name." I had taken it off to shower and hadn't put it back on, hoping he wouldn't notice. But of course he noticed. He always noticed when I didn't display his ownership clearly enough. I went and got the necklace, letting him fasten it around my neck again, feeling the weight of his name against my skin. The restaurant was in the upscale part of the city, the kind of place with cloth napkins and 3 different forks and prices that would make me gasp if I were really paying. The host greeted Rodrigo by name, showing us to a prime table by the window. As we walked through the restaurant, I saw people turning to look at us. At Rodrigo, successful and handsome. And at me, his beautiful accessory in the red dress. If they noticed the fading bruises on my face, they were polite enough or afraid enough not to mention it. We sat down and Rodrigo ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted. Wine, appetizers, main courses. I was just supposed to smile and nod and be grateful. Halfway through the meal, disaster struck. Rodrigo, what a surprise. A man approached our table, tall and gray-haired, wearing an expensive suit. He had the kind of face that spoke of old money and inherited power. Rodrigo stood and shook his hand. Señor Vasquez, good to see you. And this must be the lovely Lucia I've heard so much about. The man turned to me with a smile. Rodrigo talks about you constantly. Says you're a teacher? My blood ran cold. A teacher. He thought I was a teacher because that's what Lucia was, what she had been before Rodrigo made her quit. I used to be, I said softly, hoping that would be enough. Such a shame you gave it up. The world needs good teachers. He turned back to Rodrigo. You must bring her to the charity gala next month. My wife would love to meet her. Of course, Rodrigo said smoothly. We'll be there. After Señor Vasquez left, I waited for Rodrigo to question me, to ask why I had said I used to be a teacher when I had never actually had that job. But he didn't. To him, Lucia's past life before him didn't matter. He had erased it so completely from his mind that he had forgotten the basic facts of who she had been. The realization made me sad and furious in equal measure. We finished dinner, and Rodrigo seemed pleased with how the evening had gone. You did well tonight, he said, as we walked to his car. You were quiet and polite, exactly how you should be. I'm glad you finally learned. In the car he reached over and put his hand on my thigh, possessive and expectant. When we get home I think it's time we properly make up for the other night. Don't you? My stomach dropped. I had known this was coming, had prepared for it as much as I could, but now that the moment was here, I felt panic rising in my throat. Rodrigo, I said carefully. It's my time of the month, it started today. He frowned. You didn't mention that this morning. It just started a few hours ago. I'm sorry, I should have said something. He was quiet for a moment, and I held my breath, waiting to see if he would believe me, or if this would be the moment he realized I wasn't really Lucia, that I didn't know the intimate rhythms of her body. Fine, he finally said. But his jaw was tight with annoyance. But you'll make it up to me in other ways. The relief I felt was short-lived as I realized what he meant. When we got back to the apartment, Rodrigo pulled me into the bedroom. What followed was deeply humiliating, a reminder that there were many ways to violate someone beyond physical violence. I did what I had to do, disconnecting my mind from my body, pretending I was somewhere else, someone else. Afterward, he fell asleep satisfied, and I lay beside him feeling dirty and used and more determined than ever to destroy him. But I also felt a crushing guilt. By taking Lucia's place, by becoming her, I was experiencing just a fraction of what she had endured for months. And if this was just a fraction, how had she survived? The next morning was Saturday. Rodrigo slept late, so I had time to call my sister from the bathroom with the door locked and the shower running. Elena? Lucia's voice was thick with worry. Are you okay? You were supposed to call yesterday. I'm fine, I whispered. I couldn't get away. He took me out to dinner, and then, I just couldn't call. Did he hurt you? I thought about how to answer that. Not in the way you mean, but Lucia, I have something. I recorded one of his meetings. Drug trafficking, police corruption, everything. It's enough to start building a case. You need to get out of there, she said urgently. You have enough, leave before something worse happens. Not yet. I need to get into his office, into his safe. I need physical evidence, not just a recording that he could claim was taken out of context or faked. Elena. I have to go. He's stirring. I'll call you again when I can. I love you. I love you too. Please be careful. I ended the call and deleted the record of it from the phone. My hands shaking. The rest of the weekend passed in the same routine. Cook, clean, obey. Smile when told to smile. Be quiet when told to be quiet. Become less than human so that a monster could feel powerful. But Monday brought an opportunity. Rodrigo announced at breakfast that he would be gone all day Tuesday for a business trip to a nearby city. He wouldn't be back until Wednesday morning. The apartment better be perfect when I return, he warned. And Lucia, don't even think about leaving or doing anything stupid. I have people watching. If you step foot outside this building, I'll know. I won't leave, I promised. I'll be here when you get back. He kissed me hard, bruising my lips, marking me. Then he was gone. As soon as the door closed behind him on Tuesday morning, I sprang into action. I had roughly 24 hours to do what I needed to do. First, I went to his office door and tried the combinations I had been working on in my head. 2, 6, 3. Then what? I tried his birth year. Wrong. I tried the year he started his business. Wrong. I tried Lucia's birthday. Wrong. On the fourth try, the keypad beeped warningly. One more wrong attempt, and it would lock me out completely. I stepped back thinking, 2, 6, 3. What did those numbers mean to him? Why would those be the first 3 digits? And then it hit me. February 6, the third month, 263. Not a date exactly, but I tried 2, 6, 3, 0, 6, 1, 8. February 6, 2018. The day he had opened his offshore account according to papers I had seen lying on his desk. The keypad beeped green. The lock clicked open. I was in. The office was exactly as Lucia had described. Expensive desk, leather chairs, shelves of books he probably never read, and along the back wall, hidden behind a painting, a safe. I went to the painting and swung it aside. The safe was high-end with both a key lock and a digital combination pad. Even if I had the code, I would need a physical key. But Rodrigo was a careful man. The key would be hidden somewhere in this office, somewhere close enough to access easily but not obvious enough to be found by casual inspection. I spent an hour searching. I looked in drawers, under desk pads, inside book covers, behind picture frames. Nothing. Then I looked at the desk itself more carefully. It was a heavy antique piece, all dark wood and brass fittings. The bottom drawer was deeper than the others, deeper than it needed to be for the files it contained. I pulled out all the files and felt along the bottom of the drawer. There in the back corner, my fingers found a small indentation. I pressed it, and a false bottom popped up, revealing a small compartment underneath. Inside was a key. My hands were trembling as I took it to the safe. I tried the same code I had used for the office door 2630618. The safe beeped, the key turned, and the door swung open. Inside was a treasure trove of evidence. Stacks of cash bound in rubber bands, ledgers documenting drug sales and payoffs. A list of names, police officers, politicians, judges, all on Rodrigo's payroll. Bank statements showing millions of dollars moving through offshore accounts. Photographs of people, some of them bound and beaten, proof of Rodrigo's violence. And in a separate folder, documents related to Lucia, the deed to the apartment, which was in his name only, making her legally homeless if she ever left him. Medical records he had somehow obtained, probably illegally. Even a copy of her birth certificate and social security card, control over her very identity. I pulled out my phone and started photographing everything. Every page, every document, every piece of evidence. My phone's storage filled up quickly, and I had to delete photos and apps to make room, but I kept going. Hours passed. My back ached from bending over the safe, and my eyes burned from the flash of the camera, but I didn't stop. This was it. This was everything I needed to bury Rodrigo Santillan. Finally, when I had photographed everything, I carefully put it all back exactly as I had found it. Closed the safe, locked the office, and went to back up all the photos to 3 different cloud storage accounts. Then I called Lucia. I have it, I said as soon as she answered. All of it, everything we need. Thank God, she breathed. When are you coming home? Not yet. If I disappear now, he'll know someone was in his office. He'll destroy the evidence before anyone can get to it. I need to wait until the right moment, until we can get law enforcement to raid the place and seize everything. Then what's the plan? I had been thinking about this for days, turning it over in my mind. We need to contact someone in law enforcement, who isn't on his payroll. Federal agents maybe, or investigators from outside the city. Someone who can act quickly before he has time to warn his corrupt police contacts. How do we find someone like that? I'll figure it out. But Lucia, you need to prepare to go into hiding. Once this goes down, Rodrigo will know it was us. He'll come looking for revenge. I know. Her voice was steady, braver than I had heard it since that first night she showed up at my door. I'm ready. Just tell me what to do. We made plans. Lucia would contact a women's shelter. arrange for a place we could both stay once this was over. She would gather whatever documents and money we had. She would be ready to run at a moment's notice. Rodrigo returned Wednesday morning, and I was waiting with breakfast on the table, wearing one of the dresses he liked, the picture of the obedient girlfriend. He was in a good mood, the business trip having gone well. "I missed you," he said, pulling me into a kiss. "The apartment looks perfect." "Thank you," I murmured. Over the next few days I pretended everything was normal while secretly working on the final phase of my plan. I researched federal law enforcement agencies, looking for someone I could contact who would take the evidence seriously. I found an FBI field office in the city, specializing in organized crime and public corruption. I drafted an anonymous email, attaching a selection of the photos I had taken, along with the audio recording from the meeting. "The man in these documents is Rodrigo Santillan," I wrote. "He runs a drug trafficking operation with the help of corrupt police and city officials. The safe in his office at the address below contains evidence of his crimes. I am a woman in danger who cannot come forward publicly. Please act quickly before he destroys the evidence." I scheduled the email to send on Friday morning at 9 a.m. When Rodrigo would be at a meeting downtown, that would give the FBI time to review the information and potentially get a warrant by Friday afternoon. Friday morning arrived. I made Rodrigo his coffee and breakfast as usual. He was distracted on his phone constantly, preparing for his important meeting. "I'll be back around 3, he said. "Dress nicely. We're going out again tonight." "Okay," I said. The door closed. I waited 5 minutes to make sure he wasn't coming back. Then I grabbed the burner phone I had secretly bought and called Lucia. "It's happening," I said. "The FBI will receive everything in an hour. I'm getting out now." "Where are you going?" "To the police station, the real one, the one across town that shouldn't be on his payroll. I'm going to give a statement as Lucia, report the domestic violence, and then disappear before Rodrigo finds out. Once the FBI moves, he'll be too busy trying to save himself to worry about us." "Elena, be careful." "I will. I love you, little sister." "I love you too." I changed into Lucia's least expensive clothes, jeans, a plain t-shirt, sneakers. I put on a baseball cap and sunglasses. Then I took all the physical evidence I could carry. The phone with the recordings, a flash drive with copies of all the photos, Lucia's medical records showing her injuries. The doorman Miguel looked surprised when I came down in casual clothes instead of my usual outfit. "Going out, Miss Dominguez?" "Just running a quick errand," I said, keeping my voice light. "I'll be back soon." His eyes lingered on me, and I wondered if he suspected something, if he would call Rodrigo, but I couldn't worry about that now. I pushed through the door and out onto the sidewalk, feeling sunlight on my face for the first time in a week. I walked quickly, head down, constantly checking over my shoulder to see if anyone was following me. 3 blocks away, I caught a taxi. "The main police station," I told the driver. "The one on Juarez Avenue." The ride took 15 minutes. With every mile I felt both more free and more terrified. I was escaping, but I was also setting in motion events that couldn't be undone. The police station was old and worn, nothing like the sleek modern building downtown where Rodrigo had his contacts. I walked in and approached the front desk, where a tired-looking officer was doing paperwork. "I need to report domestic violence," I said quietly. He looked up, and his eyes widened slightly when he saw my face. Even though the bruises were mostly healed, they were still visible, if you looked closely. "Come with me," he said immediately. Standing, "Let me get you to someone who can help." He led me to a small room with a table and chairs, the kind of room I had seen in police procedural shows. A few minutes later, a woman in a detective's badge came in. "I'm Detective Rosa Martinez," she said, sitting across from me. "You said you wanted to report domestic violence." And so I told her everything. Well, almost everything. I told her I was Lucia Dominguez, in a relationship with Rodrigo Santillan. I told her about the beatings, about the control, about the fear. I showed her my bruises, gave her the medical records. "I need to stop him before he does this to someone else," I said. "Or before he kills me." Detective Martinez was taking notes, her expression grave. "Miss Dominguez, these are serious allegations against a prominent man. Do you understand that this will not be easy? That he will have expensive lawyers and resources to fight back. I know, but I also know what he is. And I know that if I don't do this, I'll never be free. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? Yes. A friend is helping me. She nodded. I need to photograph your injuries and take your full statement. Then we'll need to get a restraining order. Though I'll be honest with you, sometimes those don't do much against men like this. But it's a start. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything in detail. Detective Martinez was thorough and kind, never making me feel stupid for staying with Rodrigo. Never asking why I didn't leave sooner. She understood. By 2 o'clock I had given my complete statement and had been photographed from every angle. Detective Martinez walked me out personally. We're going to catch him, she said. I promise you that. And in the meantime you stay somewhere safe. If he contacts you, you let me know immediately. I thanked her and left, catching another taxi to the address Lucia had given me, the women's shelter where she was waiting. The shelter was in a nondescript building, unmarked and secure. I had to be buzzed in through multiple doors. When I finally reached the common area, I saw Lucia sitting on a sofa, and she jumped up the moment she saw me. We ran to each other and collided in a hug, both of us crying. You did it, she sobbed. You got out. We got out, I corrected. This isn't over yet, but we're together now. A counselor showed us to a small room with twin beds, simple but clean. It felt like the most luxurious place in the world, because it was ours, a space where we could finally be ourselves. That evening, as we sat on those twin beds eating dinner from the shelter's kitchen, my phone rang. It was a blocked number, but I answered anyway. Miss Dominguez? This is FBI Special Agent Daniel Torres. We received your email this morning. My heart started racing. Yes. We've reviewed the evidence you sent, and we're moving forward with a warrant. We'll be executing it on Rodrigo Santillan's residence and business locations first thing Monday morning. But I need to ask, are you the woman in danger that you mentioned in your email? Yes, I said quietly. Are you somewhere safe right now? Yes. Good. Stay there. Once we move on Monday, he's going to know someone provided this information. He's going to be looking for you. I understand. One more thing. Would you be willing to testify if this goes to trial? I looked at Lucia, who was watching me with wide eyes. I thought about everything Rodrigo had done, everything he would continue to do if someone didn't stop him. Yes, I said, I'll testify. The weekend passed in a strange limbo. Lucia and I stayed at the shelter, barely sleeping, jumping at every sound. We knew that by Monday everything would change. Monday morning we sat in the shelter's common room with the TV turned to a local news channel. At 10:30 a.m., the breaking news alert came. Prominent businessman, Rodrigo Santillan has been arrested on federal charges of drug trafficking, racketeering, and corruption. FBI agents raided his Reforma Avenue residence early this morning, where they reportedly found significant evidence of criminal activity. Several police officers and city officials are also being taken into custody in connection with the case. The news showed footage of Rodrigo being led out of his building in handcuffs, his face twisted with rage. FBI agents carried boxes of evidence from the apartment. The safe stood open empty. Lucia gripped my hand so hard it hurt, but I barely noticed. We had done it. We had actually done it. My phone rang almost immediately. Detective Martinez. Miss Dominguez, I'm watching the news. This was you, wasn't it? I don't know what you mean, I said carefully. Well, whoever it was, they did good work. Santillan is going away for a very long time. How are you feeling? Scared, I admitted. But also free. That's good. That's very good. Stay where you are for now. We'll need you to testify when this goes to trial. But in the meantime, lay low. The next few days were a whirlwind. The story dominated local news. More arrests were made as the investigation widened. It turned out Rodrigo had been involved in not just drug trafficking but also money laundering, extortion, and at least 3 murders that they could prove. His lawyers tried to get him bail, but the judge denied it, citing flight risk and danger to the community. Rodrigo Santillan was going to stay in jail until trial. Lucia and I stayed at the shelter for 2 more weeks while we made plans. We decided to leave the city entirely, make a fresh start somewhere else. With our teaching credentials, we could find work anywhere. The hardest part was saying goodbye to the lives we had built. My students at the elementary school, Lucia's old friends from her teaching days, our small apartment, but we agreed, it was worth it to be free. Before we left, I went back to the apartment one last time to pack up our things. Lucia couldn't bring herself to go, so I went alone, with Detective Martinez's blessing and a police escort. The building felt different now, less intimidating. Miguel, the doorman, looked at me with new respect, or maybe fear. I saw the news, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I should have seen what was happening, should have done something. It's okay, I told him, and I meant it. He was just trying to survive too. The apartment was a mess. The FBI had torn through everything looking for evidence. But I found what I was looking for: photo albums from our childhood, Mom's jewelry box, the quilt Grandma had made, things that mattered. As I was leaving, I stopped in front of the mirror in the entryway. The one Lucia had looked into every day, making herself small and perfect and terrified. I took off the gold necklace with Rodrigo's name in diamonds. For 2 weeks, I had kept wearing it, not wanting to leave any evidence that someone else had been playing Lucia. But now I could finally take it off. I held it in my palm for a moment, feeling its weight, then I dropped it in the trash can by the door. Lucia and I moved to a small town 3 hours away, where no one knew our story. We got an apartment together, found jobs at the same elementary school teaching different grades. We went to therapy both individually and together, working through the trauma of what we had experienced. The trial took almost a year to get to court. When it finally did, both Lucia and I testified, telling our stories to a packed courtroom. Rodrigo sat at the defendant's table, glaring at us with such hatred that the judge had to warn him to control himself. But we didn't flinch. We told the truth, all of it, and we looked him in the eye while we did it. He was found guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 45 years in prison without possibility of parole. As they led him out of the courtroom, Rodrigo tried to turn and say something to us, but the bailiffs pushed him forward. We would never have to see him again. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us, asking questions, wanting to know how it felt, wanting our story. Detective Martinez helped us push through to a waiting car. "How does it feel?" one reporter shouted. I looked at Lucia, and she looked at me, and we both smiled. "Like we can finally breathe," I answered. That was 5 years ago. Today Lucia and I are still teaching in that small town. She's engaged to a kind man who works at the hardware store, someone gentle who makes her laugh and would never dream of raising a hand to her. I'm dating too, taking things slow, learning to trust again. We still live together, still call each other every day when we're apart, still sleep in the same room sometimes when the nightmares come. We probably always will. Being twins, being two halves of the same whole, it means we understand each other in ways no one else ever can. Sometimes people ask us why we didn't just go to the police from the beginning, why I had to pretend to be Lucia, why we couldn't just tell the truth. But they don't understand what it's like to be a woman in a world that often doesn't believe women. They don't understand that men like Rodrigo have power and money and connections, and that sometimes the system protects them instead of protecting their victims. We did what we had to do to survive and to make sure he couldn't hurt anyone else. And I would do it all again without hesitation to save my sister. Because that's what love is. It's not just the easy moments, the happy times, the good days. Love is looking at someone who shares your face, who shares your soul, and saying, "I will walk into hell for you. I will become you. I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe." Rodrigo Santillan tried to destroy my sister. He tried to break her spirit, to own her body and mind, to reduce her to nothing more than an object for his pleasure and ego. But he didn't succeed. Because he didn't account for me. He didn't account for the power of two women who would do anything for each other. He thought he was teaching Lucia a lesson she would never forget. Instead, we taught him one. The lesson that love is stronger than fear. That women will fight back, no matter how long it takes, no matter how dangerous it is. That we are not objects to be owned. We are not dolls to be played with. We are human beings with strength and courage, and a will to survive that even the cruelest men cannot break. And that lesson will stay with him for the rest of his life, sitting in that prison cell, knowing that the woman he thought he had destroyed was the one who destroyed him instead. Or rather, the two women who destroyed him. Because he never could tell us apart.